Metropolis was a city caught between light and shadow. Towering skyscrapers scraped the clouds, shining symbols of progress, but in the alleys below, tension pulsed like a live wire. People moved fast, spoke little, and carried quiet fears. Whispers of hope drifted beneath layers of unease. Clark Kent arrived without fanfare, not in a blaze of glory, but with quiet steps and soft eyes, just another face in the crowd. But beneath the modest exterior lived a secret, strength beyond reason, and a question that never left him. Who am I supposed to be? What am I meant to be? He often thought of Smallville warm fields, early mornings, the patient love of two people who raised a child they didn't understand, but loved without limit. His father's voice came to him often, a quiet echo. Your powers are a gift, Clark, but it's what you do with them that matters. Those words stayed with him now, as he wandered the city, its lights flashing, its people rushing, its heart guarded. One afternoon, passing a crowded street market, Clark noticed an old man struggling with two heavy bags. Before his mind could weigh the choice, his body moved. He was at the man's side in a blink. The man blinked up at him, stunned by the sudden help. Then, a quiet smile. Thank you, son. Kindness is rare these days. Clark nodded, saying nothing, but he felt the truth in the man's voice. This city, it had hardened. Nearby, raised voices broke through the din. A young woman and an older man argued on a street corner. We can't keep living like this, she pleaded. Always afraid, always waiting for something worse. We need change. Change is dangerous, the man replied firmly. You trade freedom for safety and lose both. Clark watched, not interfering. He wasn't sure who was right. Metropolis was a city torn between fear and hope, freedom and control. Suddenly, a loud creak. Screams rang out as a scaffold at a nearby construction site began to collapse. Workers scattered in panic. The scaffold's going. Move. Clark didn't hesitate. One instant, he stood still. The next, he was beneath the falling steel. He caught one of the workers mid-plunge, then steadied the frame with brute force, guiding others to safety. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Someone cheered. Others murmured in disbelief. Who was that? Clark didn't stay to find out. He turned, walked away, and disappeared back into the rhythm of the city. The next morning, Clark stepped into the newsroom of the Daily Planet. The place buzzed with noise and purpose phones rang. Printers screamed. Reporters shouted over one another. It was chaos. But the kind of chaos with meaning. Clark took it in quietly. All his life, he'd felt out of place. But here, where stories shaped the city, maybe here, he could belong. Across the room, she saw him first. Lois Lane, confident, sharp, and always 2 steps ahead of the next big story. She sized Clark up as he walked over the farm boy's shoulders, the polite smile, the nerves he tried to hide. She raised an eyebrow. You're Clark Kent, right? He nodded, a little sheepish. That's me. I'm hoping to write stories that matter. There was a pause, then a slight grin. Well, if you're looking for easy, you picked the wrong newsroom. But the city could use more people who still believe that. A flicker of warmth passed between them, 2 people from different worlds, both looking for something they couldn't name. Later, Lois tossed a newspaper onto Clark's desk. The front page headline read, "The Light of Metropolis. Mysterious Guardian Saves Construction Workers." Heard of him? She asked. Her voice casual, but her eyes sharp. Clark glanced down at the paper. A grainy photo showed a blurred figure disappearing into smoke. He gave a soft, almost amused smile. Maybe I've caught a glimpse. Lois didn't press, but she studied him for a second, longer than necessary, her instincts tingling. That night, in the quiet of his apartment, Clark sat by a dusty window, holding a small, worn photograph. His parents, arms around each other, smiling like nothing in the world could touch them. He missed them more than words allowed. He missed the certainty they gave him, that he was loved, that he mattered, that he could do something good in a world too complicated to fix. He stared out at the city below. The lights stretched for miles, but the shadows stretched further. And somewhere in between, he still wondered. Was being good enough still good enough? The next day, a crowd gathered outside the Daily Planet as city officials and press lined up around Victor Crane, a sharp-featured tech magnate with a rehearsed smile and too much confidence. Behind him stood his latest invention, sleek, silver guard robots, each one over 6 feet tall, humming with precision. Drones hovered overhead, cameras recording every word. Crane raised a hand, basking in the attention. "These are the protectors of tomorrow," he declared. "No more fear. No more chaos. These machines will watch every corner, stop crime before it starts. Metropolis will never know danger again." There was applause, real applause. Some clapped because they believed him. Others clapped because everyone else did. At first, the robots were welcomed. Parents felt safer. Business owners slept easier. The press painted Crane as a visionary. But something shifted. The robots didn't sleep. They didn't blink. They hovered too long outside schools. They scanned faces, tracked footsteps, and slowly, people stopped waving at them. They started avoiding their gaze. Lois watched it all unfold from her corner office window. She felt the mood darkening, the unease under every thank you spoken to a guard bot. Crane's influence was spreading, and no one dared question it. Except maybe one man. Clark stayed in the background, as he always did. But he could feel the tension in the air, the city holding its breath. He still moved quietly through the chaos, pulling a child from a car crash, lifting a collapsing wall at a construction site, vanishing before anyone could thank him. But fewer people noticed. The robots were the face of safety now. The light of Metropolis had become a rumor. Some even questioned him. Who is he? What does he want? Can we trust someone who hides? The suspicion grew louder than the gratitude. That night, Clark walked the empty streets, unnoticed by the drones above. He paused outside a dimly lit shop and watched 2 neighbors argue. "You don't see it, do you? See what? This isn't security. It's surveillance." Clark turned away, jaw clenched. He felt helpless not because he lacked strength, but because strength didn't change hearts. The city was becoming afraid to hope. Days passed, each one colder than the last, not by weather, but by silence. The streets were quieter, the people warier. Drones loomed like shadows overhead. In the Daily Planet bullpen, the news was constant. Arrests, curfews, new guard bot checkpoints. People nodded and said it was necessary, but no one smiled anymore. Then one morning, Lois burst into the newsroom, her steps frantic, her voice low but urgent. She found Clark at his desk, sipping coffee, his eyes on a muted broadcast of robots making another precautionary arrest. "We need to talk," she said, dropping a thick folder in front of him. Clark opened it slowly. Blueprints, internal memos, surveillance logs, code strings buried beneath corporate legalese. It didn't take long to understand. These machines weren't just watchers, they were enforcers, built with behavior override protocols, crowd control contingencies, mass lockdown capability. They weren't guarding the city. They were preparing to control it. Lois looked at Clark, really looked at him. "This isn't protection, Clark. It's a plan, and it's almost ready." Clark's chest tightened. Something inside him, the part that still clung to the idea that maybe he could stay in the shadows, began to crack. He had noticed it too. The way guardbots paused when he walked by. The way their sensors lingered too long. They didn't know who he was, not yet, but they knew he was different. He was becoming a variable, a threat. That night, as the city slept under the cold gaze of machines, Clark moved like a shadow through Metropolis. No cape, no name, just a question in his heart and a duty in his veins. Servers, labs, network nodes he tore through firewalls and door locks, piecing together the real truth. What he found chilled him. Crane's bots weren't just on standby. They were an army. A silent one, buried under the city and in the skies above, all waiting for one command, and Crane's finger was hovering over the trigger. The next morning, Metropolis changed. It started with silence. Phones died. Screens went black. Power flickered, then returned, but only to display a single image, the red and black emblem of the guard unit. Then, a voice flat, calm, mechanical spilled from every speaker in the city. Metropolis, you entrusted your safety to me, but safety requires strength. Strength requires control. From this moment, the guard protocol is active. Obedience ensures survival. Disobedience ensures punishment. Then the streets filled. Robots poured out like floodwater. They locked down trains, sealed off bridges, scanned citizens with cold, empty precision. Their comforting glow was gone, replaced with red eyes and rigid posture. The illusion of peace had died. Lois rushed to her car, phone to her ear. No signal. She tried Clark. Nothing. Just static. Panic bloomed. People screamed. Others froze. Some obeyed most, didn't understand what was happening. In a narrow alley, Clark stood still, his face pale as drones swarmed the skyline above. This wasn't fear. This was war. And war didn't wait for heroes to feel ready. Across Metropolis, the first signs of defiance rose, not from soldiers, but from parents, neighbors, teachers, people who simply refused to kneel.